Tom here from Lawrence Systems. Have you ever hacked together a spreadsheet into a kinda-sorta database because going full SQL felt overkill or just too complicated? That's where Grist comes in and bridges that gap between spreadsheets and, well, having to build a SQL database. It's open source, self-hostable, gives you relational data power without the heavy lift. Grist has link tables, enforced types, row-level access, and build views you can actually use, all through a really nice UI. This video is sponsored by Grist, and I thank them for supporting the channel. I'm going to show you how to get it set up and give you some example use cases, so let's get started. Now we're going to be installing this via Docker. All their code is available on GitHub. It's very actively developed because there's a company behind it that's offering support. So before we get to the install, I do want to take a moment to mention how their pricing works. And before you click off of this, it's still free for people who want to use it and self-host, but it's also free if you want to try it out on their servers. So they have a free edition that has some limitations, of course, for how many records you can save. They can only offer you so much free storage. They have a pro, business, and enterprise. If you want to self-host it, but still get enterprise level support, they have an option for that. We're going for the community edition, as they refer to as Grist Core, which is not going to come with any support, but they do have very active forums and very good documentation. And one more option I want to point out is that it requires no sign-in at all to kind of test Grist out. They have templates, their documentation, and we can open this one up here like the lightweight CRM, and I'm not signed in at all, but I can start looking at it, play with it, and decide whether or not this is something I want to test. So if you really want to poke away and try out Grist without even getting to the command line like we're going to next, you can certainly do that with no information needed provided from you, or do sign up for a free account and actually start building something with it to really understand it. Now, as I said earlier, Grist has great documentation, not just on how to use Grist, but also on how to set it up. I want to point out here that they have their Docker file right here that I'm going to turn from a one line to a Docker Compose. We'll get to that in a moment, but I want to touch on authentication. They do support authentication providers. They did not build in authentication method inside of Grist, so you can integrate this with, well, a variety of different identity providers. They have examples of Auth0, Authentic, so you have open source options. You also have examples for Google. There's a lot of variety that you can do here. I'm just going to keep it narrower in scope for setting this up because it's not required that you set up an identity provider, but it is an option if you're using this in an environment with a lot of people. You want to control all the access levels those people have to this system. That is all documented very well right here, how to configure that. Now, the Docker Compose file is relatively straightforward. You can find a link down below to my forum post where you can just copy and paste this. The image is pulled from the Docker Hub. It is maintained by Grist themselves. We have restart unless stopped. Image name is going to be Grist. Ports are 8484. That's the default. And I don't have any conflicts on this host, so I don't need to change it, but customize that as you see fit. The Grist session secrets. This is part of the encryption for your session token, so set it to something better than this. I do like that they have sandboxing in here. What that does is sandbox the scripts that are running for better security. Then we have the Grist default email, the app home URL. I've created an entry in my NGINX proxy manager. There's nothing special in terms of customizations to NGINX proxy manager I had to do to get Grist running. I'm not going to get into the details of it because you'll find a video linked down below that covers NGINX proxy manager, dedicated video, but it should work with other reverse proxies as well. So use the one that works well for you. Then we have the volumes, which is the persist volumes. Now where that's going to be stored is right in the same place as the compose file, which it doesn't exist yet because we got to do a Docker up, which will get Grist started. When we take a look within the persist, we have two files there. The settings and the sessions are all stored within here, and then the documents are stored underneath. This is the data, of course, that's important to back up because if you're putting a lot of data in, you should always know where it's going and making sure that you have a backup of it, or just back up your entire Docker host, but that's where all that data lives. And when you first go to Grist, you'll see the sign in right here. And when you click it, it brings me right in because we don't have any authentication set up. If we look at the admin panel, it lets us know that it's got the sandboxing variable, session secret, and no authentication. We scroll down here, it lets me know the current version of Grist is 173 and that I'm on the latest version, and it has a series of self-checks. Now that we have Grist set up, let's talk about what Grist can do, but I want to start with the permissions. I have the home workspace here, and then I have a user workspace I called LTS for Lawrence Systems. The ability to add other people to a team workspace or create multiple team workspaces makes it really easy to collaborate with others on Grist. And of course, the really important part is that people have access in the way you want. So the ability to invite multiple people, choose their access level as owner, editor, or simply a viewer, allows a lot of easy collaboration. Once you're in any one particular document within Grist, we can go over here to the access rules, and they can be very fine-grained. We have table rules, user attribute rules, owner, editor, etc. And this goes right down to conditional rules, including lookup table or lookup column rules. And I don't have any other users set up to go more in depth in this. It is covered in their documentation. Now, to better showcase some of the functionality of Grist and what it can do, I grabbed a few of the templates that are freely available from Grist. I have this Large in America one, which shows off the objects that are, well, interesting to look at around America. So if you're trying to do a road trip, these might be fun to look at. They've included the data along with a map widget because we want to know where these are and we want to be able to see them. And when we click on any one of these, it takes us to that location. I can change the view here. And simply by clicking on any of these, it will bring us to that list. Let's take a little bit closer look at how the functionality works. So we have this objects data, and then we have this map widget. And if we look at the widget options, which are here, you can see it's simply mapping name to name. And it's mapping longitude to longitude, latitude to latitude, geocode, etc. to build the functionality. Same with this card widget. This card widget, when we look at the widget options for this, which are over here, we've linked the name, city, state, images, and a link. Really straightforward in terms of how it links. And if I wanted to also add to this card the latitude, let's go ahead and click that. And let's put the longitude on there as well. You can see it's now updated the card. So anytime I change these views, the images change dynamically. And yes, you can embed things within here. Now, where is some of that data? Because, for example, images doesn't seem to be showing up here. Well, if we're on this large objects and each thing is its own widget, so we look at these widget options now, and we see the visible columns and then the hidden columns. Let's go ahead and make the images a visible column. And let's focus on that images column, and we can set the size to make them a little bit bigger or not as big. And on the table here, we can set the max height. Maybe we want to make this more viewable. And of course, we can always double click on each one, but I think you see why it was a better idea to have a card down here for any of the data. Now, if you want to look at the data raw, you go down here, and we only really have one raw data table, objects, and this just allows you to see all the raw data. Now, any of the data that you put into, whether you import it or use a form to submit it into Grist, is not stuck in Grist. From any of the views, you can download the data as a CSV or an XLS file. Also, when you're in different views, such as the raw data view, you can do it there as well. So you can have the data in its entirety, or you can choose very specific options and only export the data that you've manipulated. And if we go to the top up here, we go to share, we can download this as a Grist document. So if you're working on Grist from their site or from another server running Grist and you want to bring it in as your own, you can download this document or download the attachments or export this. Once again, CSV, TSV, Microsoft Excel, or DSV. The bigger point being, none of your data is locked into Grist. It's easy to import data. It's easy to get the data back out of Grist. Now, going back to the main page, let's look at something a little bit more advanced, like their investment research template, which has quite a bit of data in here, and it lets you click on any one of these to dig a little deeper. So if we go to breakdowns, this is updating dynamically as we choose the different years, because we can do the usual things such as pie charts or even bar charts. Let's go to the main page here and show you how to start with a blank document. Have table 1 here, which we're going to rename to my data table. And we'll give it the same name for the page view. This will be a description. This will be where we upload attachments. I don't need column C, so let's go ahead and just delete that column. But I do want a timestamp applied to any new records added. Now let's go back to the description here. And we want to click on the column, and we want to set this as a type of text. We want to click on the uploads, and this is what we're going to do as an attachment. So now when we go here to our description, some meme, let's go ahead and upload a meme. And we can change that size to make it a little bit bigger, stretch that out, and of course we can double click on it to be able to view this. This meme I had posted on LinkedIn. Go ahead and close that, and we can keep adding more, but let's go a step further. Let's add new. We want to add another page, and we want to put a form on that page, and we're going to connect it to our data table. We'll leave the form title and descriptions, which are completely editable by double-clicking, just default. But let's map this widget because I don't like the mappings. It tried to auto map, so we go here to the widget options. It tried to map the created at. I don't need that, but I would like the uploads mapped. So now we have the description and uploads, and we're going to go ahead and hit publish. Now, publishing it means we can share this form, we can embed this form, and if it's publicly accessible, you could embed this in the site. But what does the form actually look like, and how do you submit things? Well, let's go ahead and view it. Another meme, choose a file, look at my downloads, hit open, submit, brings us to the thank you for submitting page, which can be customized in the form as well, which is right over here. If I wanted to have this redirect them to another site, thank you, your response has been submitted, can all be customized. But now look at the data table. We've got one and another option here. So that quickly I was able to build something in Grist. Even though this is really basic, it gets you the idea that attaching things and building this is really simple to do. Also, this is collaborative. As I said, you can have multiple users and fine-grained control, but they can also be in this at the same time building, so multiple people can collaborate working together on a document. Now, if we go down here and click on Code View, this allows us to see the functional code that's driving this. We can also look at a document history, specifically the activity for all tables. So you can see as we were doing things and creating this. This also applies with the document history. If I go here and then we'll take it off of all tables because we're only focusing on this table, and I make a change like deleting this, it lets me know that this was deleted. But I have an undo right up here, so I can undo and put that back. Same thing here. I can see any variations. So we'll call this form title. And it lets me know that this was changed, but I can also undo and put it back or redo to keep those updates. Grist also has a snapshot process, and we can open the snapshot, compare to current. There's also ways we can take the document and simply duplicate the document or work on a copy of the document, which is actually a really neat feature. So if we work on a copy and we go ahead and add some data, a little more data, add a little more data, or maybe we want to make some changes. We'll just call this form, and it says unsaved. We can go here, save it as a copy, return to original, or replace original, or compare it to the original. Let's go ahead and replace the original. So I like the changes I've made, and if I didn't, I could just delete this and get rid of it or save it as new, but let's replace the original, and it will let me know it's updating the original, and now all this has been merged together. So you can essentially fork and bring it right back and put it back together without any risk to the main document. Now let's talk about widgets. We want to add a new page, and we have the basic table, card, card list, form, chart, etc. Then we have custom. We're going to select this as the data table for this. And they have a lot of custom widgets that are from Grist, but you can also put your own widgets in. And this can be from a community member. This can be from something you put together. They have documentation on how to build the widgets, but I want to show you what happens when we try to add a custom widget. It lets us know that we should be careful with unknown custom widgets, but that doesn't stop you from checking this box and putting in confirm. So I love the ease of integration, but still the risk warning you have if you want to build something custom or use some external custom widget that you or someone else from the community wrote. And to customize this particular widget is really simple. It is inspection widget. And the first thing we need to do is what access? Do we want it to have read only or full document access? And we'll say only read this selected table. And what are the columns we want visible? All of these. But we could also say maybe we don't want this one. And all it's doing is reformatting the data, and probably we don't need the uploads in here. And we're just reformatting the data from the table into this new page, into this custom widget. The entire widget system offers a lot of extensibility into what you can do with Grist. Now, one last thing inside of Grist that I want to point out is I imported this Wikipedia clickstream. And I did this because there's 89,000 records in here. So here's record 1, and at the bottom, there are 89,347 records. Grist is only running on a relatively older machine, about 4 or 5 years old. It's a Ryzen 9 on the back end that runs my Docker. I bring it up because I want to show you how it filters 89,000 records. Let's go ahead and search for Minecraft, and let's say all shown. All right, close. We've just filtered this to 25 records out of 89,000, and I did this all in real time. Grist is very efficient with larger data sets. and is able to filter and change things quite fast and dynamically. Let's go ahead and pull up the filter data. We're going to select all again. And now we're back to all 89,000 records. Now, Grist does support integrations from Zapier, N8N, and several others. So if you want to build something more extensible, that integration is supported by these. And if that's not enough, they do have an API. And their API has, well, once again, good documentation and a couple different client libraries, one in JavaScript, TypeScript, and a Python client library, and several other they list here that are community-supported ones. Hope this video helped you get the gist of Grist, and if you're looking for some in-depth tutorials on building with Grist, check out their YouTube channel that has lots of step-by-step tutorials that are perfect for turning your spreadsheet into a feature-rich tool. They also have community forums you can join, and don't miss GristCon 2025 that's happening in September. I put a link in the description so you can register and check out the agenda. Big thanks again to Grist for sponsoring this video. If this helped, hit a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Also subscribe to Grist's channel if you're into it. I think it's some pretty cool stuff there.